Hey, welcome to this edition of Your Opportunity Partner. My name is Associate Professor Art Gogatz, and I'm your host for this series or this channel. Today, we're going to talk about opportunity and control, or actually why people want to try to control everything. Now, if you like this channel, and if you find the episodes useful, please like and subscribe. It always helps a new channel. And this is the 6th episode that we have. Okay, there's something which they talk about, and it's called the control paradox. Now, a paradox is a contradiction. And the control paradox says you're only in control when you stop trying to be. Now, an example of this, best example, comes from skiing, snow skiing. And when you learn how to ski, you have your skis, and they're pointed down the slope. And the slope sometimes is pretty scary. And what you need to do is you go straight down for a couple of seconds, and then you turn. Turning across the slope slows you down. So what you do is a series of straight turn, straight turn, straight turn. Okay. The difficult thing is when you have your skis parallel and they're pointing straight down the slope for a few seconds before you turn, it's really scary. You feel like you're out of control. Children learn to ski quickly. Why? Because they accept to be out of control. Child says, oh, if I fall, not much fun. If I don't fall, it's not much fun. If I do, it's okay. Adult doesn't want to fall. Adult learns to ski very slowly. I know, I learned how to ski when I was already, I guess somewhere about late 30s. Not that easy. Why? Because you don't want to accept to be out of control even for a few seconds. And in order really to learn how to ski, you've got to accept that feeling. So really, it's a question of control. Now, children learn because they don't control much. Okay, what do you control? Think about it. When I ask my MBA classes this, students always say, well, I can control myself. I mean, they give up trying to control the weather, the politics, other people, especially we don't control the people we love. Why? Because we love them. But a lot of the students say, oh, I can control myself. Well, that's really very, very difficult to do. If somebody says something horrible to you, you react. I mean, we're emotional beings and we react to what happens in other people. Also, if you can control yourself, as I ask students sometimes in class, I say, well, okay, you can control yourself. Cry for me now. Go on, cry. Well, every time I tell a student in class to cry, they laugh. I've never had one student be able to cry. Well, if you were studying film, or if you were an actor or an actress, and you have to cry for a part, for a role, you think of something so sad in your past that actually, after a few minutes, you do start to cry. Writers, artists sometimes, but especially writers, can do the same thing. If you are writing a scene in a screenplay, in a novel, that's very sad. You could be crying as you're writing because you have to feel the emotions that your characters are feeling, whether it be in a screenplay, I know I've written several, or in a theater play, or in a novel. You have to feel what your characters are feeling, because otherwise, when you see that character on the screen or when you picture them from the pages of a book, it doesn't seem real. So, yes, you can do it, which means control your emotions to some degree, but most people can't. Have you ever had difficulty sleeping? Many people have. Most of us have sometime. Why? Because we can't shut off and stop thinking. Well, if you could control yourself, you could stop thinking. And if you did, you'd fall asleep in under 2 minutes. Ah. Now, have you ever fallen asleep watching television? Yeah. Why? What you were watching was sufficiently interesting to get you to stop thinking, but not sufficiently interesting to keep you awake. Okay. So the answer is we don't control hardly anything. We control very little. Therefore, why do you insist on controlling everything and everyone? Because that's what most adults do. Control means you want to have a world, a life, as we talked about in previous episodes, that you could manage, that you could cope with. People, as we talked about in a previous episode, are afraid of making their world big. How do I manage all that? How do I control all that? The answer is, for many aspects, you can't. And that happens to be okay. Now, when you want to control everything in your life, and that includes people, you miss opportunities. Why? Because you make your world smaller and smaller, and you keep it small. What happens is most of us miss the opportunities. They're there. You could see them, but we don't see them. Why? Because we are concerned with excluding things and people and experiences and learning, and only keep our world in a way that we can cope with and manage. Question: what are you interested in? What interests you? What fascinates you? Or what? Well, I'll ask you another question. What doesn't interest you? What doesn't fascinate you? What doesn't make you want to learn about it? Okay, those are two questions. Now, for most people, for almost all people, but I would say most, not all, what doesn't interest you is far greater than what does. We choose to keep our world small. That limits your opportunities. At least part of the day, try to make your world larger. Try to be interested in more things and in more people. When I was young, growing up in New York City, on an undergrad level, I studied fine arts, drawing, painting, film, photography. And I was especially working and studying film and photography, the visual arts, performing arts. But I remember first many of the initial classes, painting, drawing, all that. And our professors had us go to the art galleries in New York City, which there are a lot of, and the museums. And so when I remember my first year in the university, I'd go to the museum, meet some of the other students there, go almost every week. Go look at the paintings. Go look at the sculptures. Now, I'm a lot older. I have a lot more experience. When I go to a museum now, I don't look at the paintings. I look at the people looking at the paintings. Why? The paintings don't change. They're the same paintings as when I looked at them years ago. People are fascinating. People are more fascinating than the paintings. But we don't think that much. We exclude most of the people that we meet. We don't let them enter our lives. It's a good question. How many people in your whole life will know you completely, absolutely everything? Physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything you want, everything you don't want, everything you're afraid of, everything, all your secrets, everything. Think about it. How many people? Well, it's got to be somebody. Our parents, a lot of things we don't tell our parents. I said everything, completely. Friends, yeah, we tell our friends a lot, but our friends may not have seen us without clothes. I said physically too. And we don't tell our friends a lot of things, and our friends come and go. How about partner? That should be the one. Husband, wife. A lot of things we don't tell them either. The answer, when you really think about it, is nobody. Why? We keep everybody away. Well, as we're going to look at in future episodes, every person you meet is an opportunity. Not to take advantage of them, not to use them, not to leverage them, but because they bring you knowledge and information and experiences, they're an opportunity. A couple of years ago, because I basically, my main focus in my research, in my teaching, is creativity and innovation in business. Well, or creativity, innovation. And I have 4 books on the subject. A couple of years ago, I was in contact with another author who had, at that time, a best-selling book in creativity, and we would just correspond. We would trade information and talk about creativity. And I remember telling him about creative people are really, really enthusiastic, and creativity touches every aspect of your life, which it does. And he said to me, no, it doesn't. He said, if it did, I'd be exhausted. And I answered, no, you wouldn't be exhausted. You'd be energized. And that's the big difference between creative people and not. Creative people are always enthusiastic and passionate and excited about what they're doing. They're always interested in something. They have new projects. They have new ideas. They have ideas about projects. They're always working on something. They're interested in everything and everyone. Now, you can't be interested in everything. You can't be interested in everyone. But boy, you can be interested in more things than you do now. So what does that mean? If you want to go, this goes back to what we talked about in a previous episode. If you want to have more opportunities, you have to be interested and you have to be ready to look and experience and learn about new things. It's not a question of really so much creating the opportunities, although we're going to talk about that in future episodes, but more so taking advantage and recognizing the opportunities you don't see. Why? Because they're outside of your frame of interest, frame of reference, you want to say. Most of your opportunities you don't see because they're outside of what you're interested in. Can you see them? Yes, of course. What do you have to do? Make your world a little bit bigger. That's all. Now, we talked about children before when I talked about skiing. Children wake up in the morning unless they have to go to school. But they wake up in the morning even so. Okay, what are we going to do today? Adventure, excitement. Let's do something. Let's go someplace. Even if they stay home, they're excited about whatever, any new toy, anything. How do you wake up in the morning? 5 more minutes. Drag to get out of bed. Opportunity is an attitude and a mindset. How do you wake up in the morning? It's a good question. What's the first thing you think about? Oh, okay, some people say coffee and different things, but do you think more in the morning, early, in the first half hour, about your problems you're going to have today? Or about the opportunities you're going to have today? About the adventure you're going to have today? About the learning you're going to have today? We look at our opportunities often as we look at problems. They're not. But you can make anything into a problem. So what you really need to do is don't worry about control. If you are fixed on control, you'll be fixed on problems, and you'll be fixed on making your world as small as you can. If you're fixed on opportunity, it's the opposite. Make your world as big as you can. Thank you for today. We'll pick up on this at another interesting aspect of opportunity in our next session. Thank you very much.